What's up, Conquerors? I've got a special video here for you today. If you want to go from Gold League to Conqueror, these are some steps and tips that you can take to do this. When I first started playing Age of Empires 4, it was the first time I had ever played rank in any game. I've played a lot of RTSs, StarCraft, Warcraft, Age of Empires, Command and Conquer, a lot of grand strategy games. And this is the first game I ever played ranked in. And I started out and I was terrible. And then I progressed to Platinum, and then Diamond, and then Conqueror 1, and Conqueror 3. And now I'm in the 1800s at Conqueror++. So I've compiled some steps for you on how you can get better and how you can get yourself to Conqueror 1 in Age of Empires 4. So I hope you enjoy these steps. If you have any questions for me, please leave them in the comments below and look forward to having y'all watch. Really quick here, guys, before I take everyone through the steps of going from Gold League to Conqueror and how you can do that with some specific steps and tips, we really need to talk about mindset for the next 90 seconds. If you want to make that type of advance in your gameplay, you're going to have to put in the work, you're going to have to stay patient, you're going to have to learn from losses, you're going to have to play more, and you're going to have to keep up with the meta, which means new builds and guides coming out from pros, okay? So putting in the work, you're going to have to play more games. You're going to have to pay attention to videos like the video I'm showing you right now, which is going to have some steps and tips. We can't do it all on our own, okay? It helps to learn from other people when you're playing. I still learn from people commenting on my videos, and a lot of those people aren't better than me at the game. But they come with a different perspective, and I can learn from them. The next thing, staying patient. You're going to go on winning streaks, you're going to go on losing streaks. Sometimes you're going to drop below the rank you want, sometimes you'll be above it. It's just part of the process. So don't get frustrated and quit. You're going to have winning streaks, you're going to have losing streaks, you have to stay patient. Next, you're going to have to learn from your losses. So that means watching your replays, understanding why you lost a game. And if you can't understand that, ask someone to take a look at your replay so they can show you how exactly that works and what to look for. And the last thing in closing for this prologue of how to have the right mindset is you're going to need to watch builds and guides coming out for each of the new seasons. Like season 10 is going to happen here soon. You know, Beastie, all these big content creators are going to have guides because the meta changes each season. Maps are different, civs are different, things work differently, and so you do kind of have to keep up with that change. So if you want to go from Gold to Conquer, the first most important thing is your mindset, and do you really want to put in the work to become a Conqueror player? Most of us don't, but if you do, I hope you enjoy this tutorial, and we'll get on to the steps. What's going to take you from Gold to Conquer is being a better player and working on some of these steps that I'm going to go through in this video. It's not the civilization, it's how you play and whether you can learn and adapt from your mistakes. And that's really the most important thing, which we'll talk about later, is learning and adapting from your mistakes. How you choose a civilization is you want to play a civilization that is fun, right? So, when I first started playing the game, I was a Delhi player, then an English player, messed around with some different civs, then settled on Mongol. And I started playing English, even though they weren't my favorite, just because the longbow rush was effective at that time, and, you know, but I wasn't having that much fun. So then I moved to a civ that was really fun, and I wanted to play with a lot, which was Mongol. And because that fits my aggressive playstyle. So I think you need to kind of take a look at what your play style is, how you like playing, and then pick the civ accordingly. Okay? If you're a defensive guy and you play Mongol, that's probably not going to be very fun, and it doesn't play to your strengths. I'm a really aggressive player. I play Mongol. It plays to my strengths. So, the best advice that I can give, and I've heard pro players say this, like Beastie, if you want to go from gold to conquer, pick one civ. Stop playing 16 different civs, okay? I don't play 16 different civs, and I'm a conqueror 3. Like, can I play with those civs? Sure. Do I play with those civs? No. I don't play with Byzantine. I don't play with Abbasid. What are some other ones in this list? I don't play Rus. I don't play Ottoman. I don't play Order of the Dragon. I don't play English. So the goal really should be for you to make the first step from gold to conquer 1. You need to pick one civilization, you stick with it, and you achieve that goal, right? Like, that's how you're going to get better. You're not going to get better by changing your build and your gameplay every time you're playing because you're playing a different civ. Again, if you want to do that for fun, that's fine, but this video is about going from gold to conquer and how to do that. So you really want to choose your one civ that you find fun, that fits your play style, and you want to play the crap out of that civ until you get to your goal of conquer 1. And even then, you probably want to keep playing mostly one civ until you even get to conquer 3. Because there are things we're going to talk about as far as matchup wise. There's so many civs in the game, right? So it's going to take a while for you to learn, like, hey, if I'm playing Mongol, what do I do against this civ? How do the games generally go? And then when they introduce new civs, you even have to find out those new matchups for your civ. So pick one civ, get good at it. People will call you a one-trick pony. That's fine. It doesn't matter. Lots of players were, let's say one-trick ponies before they became pro players or conqueror 3s. So the best way to do it, pick one civ that you love playing, enjoy playing them in the game, and you'll get better and progress, rather than picking a civ you think is better that you don't have as much fun with and trying to slog through it. So that's my advice. You want to choose and master a main civilization. The first step we're going to discuss, I'm calling mastering the fundamentals. And it's got 4 subsets that we're going to talk about, which is having a clean build order, which I'm going to show here. Focusing on your economy and macro, which I will also show. Hotkeys and control groups, and scouting. Okay, so we're doing a lot of things at the same time now. Let's slow down to half speed. Mongol is probably the hardest setup at the beginning of the game that you can have. I play a lot of Mongol. I send the Khan out to scout and grab sheep. I move a villager to build Uvu. I have 5 villagers chopping wood. I've planted my town center. That town center is making villagers. And where I'm going with all of this is you need a clean build order, okay? If you're in gold or platinum or diamond, or you've made it to conquer and you somehow don't have a clean build order, you need to go online and you need to find a clean build order from a professional player of Age of Empires 4 and start using that build order, okay? If you're not using a clean build order, I can guarantee you it's slowing down your efficiency at the beginning of the game and holding you back. Now, this is a replay I have where I was playing against another Conqueror 3 player. And you can see part of the thing I want to talk about is with this clean build order, you never miss making villagers. And it happens to me if you've watched my replays, but it holds me back in how good of a player I can be. Because this town center should always be constantly making villagers. There's not a time in Age of Empires 4 that you should not make villagers. Okay? So always makes villagers. you should always have 50 food in the bank to make a new villager. That's sometimes where I get into trouble, but that's a whole nother thing. And we'll talk about running out of food and resource denial later. So step 1, have a clean build order. Step 2, economy and macro management, essentially. Okay? So, macro, in a general sense, is the management of your food, wood, gold, and stone. Okay? We never want to float resources if we're not going to use them. That's number 1. We always use our resources. As you can see here, I gathered some wood for a pasture. So if you're gathering a resource, you need to be using it in the short term. Unless you're getting an age up in, and you're building up a little bit. But if you're not saving up for an age up, then you need to be building buildings, making units, producing villagers. You should never be floating resources. The more resources that you're floating, you're giving your opponent an advantage. Okay? So let's use a scenario. If you have 2,000 food in the bank and 1,000 wood in the bank, and his army's got 30 military and your army's got 30 military, well, you could have like 10 more horsemen in that fight and then take the fight and win. Or you could get upgrades that will help your economy, or get blacksmith upgrades that help you in that fight. So anytime you're floating resources, that's hurting you in the game. Okay, that's just an important concept to remember. So we've got clean build order. You got to have your clean build order. We've got basic economy and macro, which we'll expand on a little bit more later. And then we have hotkeys and control groups. Now, depending on the civ you play for scouting, your scouting pattern should generally be pretty safe. Okay? So let's say I'm playing this map and I have my con. I'll move out to the middle of the map, then cut over to the left, then back down, then back to my town center and drop off the sheep. I want to get all my sheep on my side of the map, right? So I'd go out to the middle, pick up the sheep here, cut across, pick up any sheep here, down any sheep, drop off at the town center, and then I'd move to the next side, get my side of the map, drop off those sheep, then you can go to his side of the map and see if you can pick up any sheep from his side, okay? You'll see I don't always do that because I play Mongol. And sometimes when you play Mongol, you're trying to find the opponent's resources if you're going to tower rush. But scouting is very, very important as far as collecting sheep early in the game. Okay? Now where scouting becomes, I don't want to say more important, let's just say equally important. Scouting is equally important through all aspects of the game. Because we're kind of at the point right now, 4 minutes, 30 seconds, where I should have already scouted his base to see what he's doing. And in this particular matchup, I'm against Knights Templar. You need to be scouting for several things, and this applies to all civilizations. You need to be scouting to see, are they going to town center? You would know this by how many villagers they have gathering stone. Really, if they're gathering stone at this point, they're probably going to town center. There's not a good reason to do it otherwise. You need to scout to see if they're going fast castle. Since he doesn't have units on gold or villagers on gold right now, I know he's not going fast castle. You need to scout to see what production buildings he's making, okay? I can see he's building a barracks. And for most civilizations, this is going to say he's going to build spearmen. So at home, I already have a stable because you can see he scouted it with the scout right here. And I'm going to go into Keshiks. So since I scouted his barracks, I know my next production building that I need to make will be an archery range, okay? Scouting like this throughout the game is vital, all right? You want to scout throughout the entire game and repeatedly scout what kind of production buildings is my enemy making. Based off what they make, you need to counter that. So they make a stable, you make a barracks. They make an archery range, you make a stable. They make a barracks, you make an archery range. It goes like that over and over and over again. These are cycles we'll expand on more in the video as far as, you know, fighting and micro encounters and those types of strategies. But this all starts with scouting. Scouting's very important. You need to always know what your opponent is doing. If you don't know what your opponent is doing, you are playing blindly, and that is a recipe for disaster, okay? Now, there are certain civs, it's harder to know what they're doing than others. You can see I'm just constantly moving around with my con here, right? I want to see if he was on stone, and I scout a pilgrim coming out. If I didn't have my con here, I wouldn't know that. I scout 2 pilgrims. So now I can come out here with the Keshiks and deny this. So, early game scouting is more, are they going 2TC, fast castle, what production buildings? Late game scouting is more, how many town centers do they have? What's their unit composition? How many relics do they have? And you can kind of continue on with that type of scouting late game. What resources are they on late game? Have they moved out to this gold? One thing I'll say about my scouting in this game, I didn't scout this top part of the map, which is a mistake. You want to scout the entire map because you'll know where the resources they're going to expand to later in the game is. So right now I'm out here raiding pilgrims. He actually goes for a weird comp I wasn't ready for, which was sergeants. But range units can beat sergeants, so I just go Keshik Mengadai. And the last thing I want to talk about, which I'm not sure this actually shows this in the replay, but are hotkeys and control groups, okay? If you're not using, doesn't matter what league you're in, I need to do a better job of it too, but if you're not using hotkeys and control groups, you are hurting your gameplay, okay? Now, what do I mean by that? If you come select a villager, and you hit Q, for instance, select a villager, you can hit Q, W, or E. So let's say I take a villager, I hit Q. Then I can actually use another hotkey to place the rest of these buildings. This is much faster than clicking. Okay, I've already got to click a lot of things in the game. I want to use these hotkeys to build my buildings. One thing I also always do is hotkey my town center. So if I'm out here fighting and I've got these guys in control group 1, I can just click my town center while I'm watching my army queue up some villagers. Okay, that's a very easy way to queue up villagers while you're out here fighting and paying attention to your units. Another thing I do is I put my production buildings in control groups. So again, I'm out here, I'm fighting, I'm doing my thing, I don't have time to look at my base. I can click 6, pulls up my archery ranges, I can queue up units. I can hit 7, pulls up my stable, I can queue up units, and I never have to go back to my base. One of the key things is maximizing those hotkeys and control groups because there's so many things happening at the same time, right? I want to be able to produce units while I don't have to go back to each production building and say, okay, stable, queue up some units, archer range, queue up some units. It's much faster to have them in a control group and queue them up at the same time. Now, I am going to fast forward through a bit of raiding here because what I want to see is, and you can see it here already, a lot of the time what I'll do is, let's say I take my main force and I put them in control group 1. Then I have a Keshik here who's scouting for pilgrims. I'll just put him in control group 2, okay? Some guys come through, he goes ahead and takes them out, and I never even had to pay attention to him. What I'll do later in the game, a lot of the times, is I'll have multiple armies. You don't always have to do this, but you can focus on 1 or 2 control groups, and I'll use different control groups to hit different parts of the map. The easiest way to break these control groups down, if you're, don't want to manage 3 or 4 at the same time, is you put all of your cavalry in control group 1, you put all of your infantry in control group 2. Vice versa, if you have no cavalry, you can put all your range units in control group 1, all your melee infantry in control group 2. Use siege as 3. So that's just the way I do it. And these control groups are really important because you can select them at any time. Let's say I'm over here and I want to select my 1s. If I double click 1, it actually takes me right to that control group. So I can be anywhere on the map, hit 1, or same with my town center, hit 0, and it'll take me around the map without me having to scroll back and forth. So these are some fundamentals that you really need to focus in on and master. And I'm interested to hear what kind of questions y'all have about these fundamentals. I could go more in depth, but I don't want the video to be 3 hours long. So again, for mastering the fundamentals, you need a clean build order. You need economy and macros, so your town center should always be making villagers, and you want to reduce villager idle time as much as possible. Scouting is essential through all parts of the game. If you're not scouting properly, that will lose you games, okay? Because people will hide what units they're making and then come at you out of the blue. So let's say they, see you're making all cav, they make 30 pikemen in their base, and then they come out and demolish you. And then lastly, hotkeys and control groups, guys. So hotkeys will save you a lot of time and be much more efficient when you're building buildings. And control groups for when you're essentially zooming in. I couldn't think of the right word, but if you want to zoom or be taken to your army, like I have the ones here, the Keshik and Mangadai, if you want to snap to those units, you can double click the control group. And if you put your buildings in control groups, you can easily make units out of those. So I hope that quick course in mastering the fundamentals was helpful. And next we're going to talk about choosing and mastering a civilization. But those 4 key items in mastering the fundamentals will help you get to being a Conqueror 1. Alright, Conquerors, for step 3 on how you're going to go from Gold League to Conqueror 1, you're going to have to get through a little bit of boring talk about strategy. Okay, you're going to have to do it for the next 10 minutes. We're going to talk about the basics of the RTS triangle, how it specifically relates to Age of Empires 4, and then some unit counters. Okay, now how is this going to help you? It's pretty simple, really. Is most people, when they play Age of Empires 4, they do not think about the overall strategy of the game. It's not that you've never thought about it. It's not that you don't think about it when you're not playing the game. It's not that you don't think that you think more about it than you do. It's when you're getting attacked in the game, your general strategy goes to crap. And you panic, and you don't think about it again. Okay? The other thing is, I know there are players out there who they have one strategy, they implement that strategy regardless of what their opponent does. And this general strategy talk is to tell you that will not work if you want to get better at the game. So, this general strategy is going to help you in the future adapt in game to scouting what your opponent is doing and then changing your game plan. Okay? Now, the basics of the RTS triangle, this is not something I created. This has been around a long time, even though I put this flimsy little triangle together. So, the basics of the RTS triangle are there are 3 strategies. You can boom, you can turtle, you can rush. Now, let's talk about it from the perspective of what your opponent does. If your opponent is going to rush, you can beat his rush by turtling. Every example I talk about, I'm going to discuss 2 opponents of equal skill. So, opponents of equal skill, if my opponent rushes me and I turtle, I win. It's not 100% of the time, but it's the majority of the time. If my opponent is booming and I rush him, then I should beat him the majority of the time. If my opponent is turtling and I boom, I should beat him because he's just sitting in his base while my economy is scaling to higher and higher numbers, and I'll eventually beat him. And let me explain for each of these examples how that works. So if your opponent's rushing you and you turtle, the reason you're going to win is, let's say you're both putting resources into army, but you have defensive buildings and he does not. And he's got to spend resources on building rams, because we're talking about feudal here, to push into your base. And you have defensive towers, town center that can garrison, you've got units inside of your base. If you're both equal skill pouring resources into units, you to defend, him to rush, you should beat him, right? Like, he pushes in with the army and rams under the town center, your army's engaged, the town center's firing off on his army, you pull your villagers in and out of the town center, burn his rams down, he's toast, all right? He's going to lose that battle. Now, if your opponent's booming, let's say they're just a 3 town center abbasid kind of guy. That's what they do every game. They don't adapt to their opponent. They're doing their 3 town center abbasid and you can't stop them. Well, actually, if you just do a feudal all in, you'll beat him almost every time. Because they have invested so many resources and additional town centers and then additional resources into making villagers. If you just make army, your army will be so overwhelming, they will lose the game. It's a simple who has put resources into the army and who has not in that situation. Now, the third part of the RTS triangle, as we approach 5 minutes in this session, is booming versus turtle. If my opponent is turtling, and I know they're going to turtle, I've scouted, I know they're turtling. Like, there are some civs more prone to do it, like English, House of Lancaster. A lot of the time I'll scout them, and if I see that they're going to turtle, I will boom. Because there's not another option, right? You can't rush them. Like, if they're turtling, you cannot rush them and beat them. It just really doesn't work well. Like, you might beat them 30% of the time, but that's not good odds. So instead, you just boom. You trade boom. You know, as Mongol, maybe I go fast Imperial for the Cognate Palace. As a different civ, China, maybe I build multiple town centers. You just outboom them. And then you build a giant freaking army later with siege. And then you walk in their base and you destroy them. So those are the basics of the RTS triangle. Now, how do we apply this to Age of Empires 4? That's what I'm going to tell you in this next slide. So again, if you're still with me after 5 minutes, we're going to take another 5 minutes to talk through this. I know it's boring information to look at it in this format, but it really is very important if you want to get better at the game and think through the general strategies. Age of Empires 4 is a tad different when I wanted to work on the triangle. So I put it more in a list format of turtle still beats feudal aggression. Boom, which I've put here as 2 town center of trade, still beats turtle. But there's something a little different in Age of Empires 4, which we have called Fast Castle. And Fast Castle beats 2 town center or trade. Again, this is the majority of the time. I'm not saying any of these are 100%. I'm just saying the majority of the time. And let me explain and give a scenario on this. Fast Castle, let's say you're playing Holy Roman Empire, Japan, Juicy's Legacy, good fast castles for all these civs. And you're playing against a French player who, instead of doing feudal aggro, which would be the meta, or what he is generally supposed to do, he decides, I'll build a 2nd town center, or maybe I'll go Chamber of Commerce this game, because I know they're going fast castle. So they're going to spend extra resources making trade or a 2nd town center at this point, which puts their unit production and their castle age timing behind yours. So once you hit fast castle, you just make 1 billion knights, and then you go kill them, and they will have nothing to stop you, because they've put themselves behind on unit production and behind on their castle timing, and you're going to be ahead of them in unit production and your castle timing. You're going to be picking up relics. So fast castle is very strong in the current meta. That's how I feel. I don't play a fast castle civ, and I still do very well, which I'll talk about that in a bit. But a lot of the strongest meta in the game right now, saying this in June 2025, seems to be around fast castle into grabbing relics and either ending the game in a castle timing push if you can, or dealing some damage, going back to your base, building a second town center, and outscaling your opponent at that point for the late game. It's a very potent strategy. Now, feudal aggression, I've done this a lot of times, can beat fast castle. It's not as surefire as the other parts of the RTS triangle or this list. But feudal aggression can work, and I've made it work lots of times. Generally, you need to delay your opponent's fast castle. You're almost never going to stop them from getting to fast castle, but maybe instead of them being there in 7 minutes, it's 9 or 9:30. And you're going to delay their fast castle, protect relics, deny resources on the map, and you can beat fast castle pretty efficiently with a feudal aggression. So I kind of put fast castle almost as turtle here, right? It's not quite a turtle, but it kind of is, because they will normally throw up an outpost on the gold, go up to castle. One I didn't have on here at first, but I added is, and I hate this strategy, is fast imperial. Can sometimes work if your opponent's turtling. So if your opponent's sitting in their base, not making units, not harassing you, sometimes you can pull off a fast imperial and beat the crap out of them, but that doesn't always work. So that's another 5 minutes on general strategy, and what you really need to be thinking about in your games is if you're going into the game with the same strategy every time, that's not good. Like, you need to be using the RTS triangle and adapting to your opponent. You need to scout what your opponent is doing and then react accordingly. So for example, I play a lot of Mongol. I like feudal aggression. If I see my opponent is turtling and I cannot do anything to him, I need to scale my economy. I cannot just keep ramming my army into his base and losing battles. Like, I can commit to the all-in and probably lose, or I can go scale my economy and fight him in the mid to late game. The other option there would be I go ahead and go up to castle and grab the relics. Either would work. If I'm start with Mongol and I'm doing feudal aggression and I notice they're booming, great. I'll just keep doing feudal aggression. If I'm doing feudal aggression and I notice they're going fast castle, I will generally still make units in feudal, enough to harass them and keep them in their base and defend relics, while going up to castle behind that myself. Then I end up being on kind of even footing as them, even though I didn't go fast castle. I've denied some resources, maybe killed a villager or two, taken some fights, defended relics. Then I hit castle and I can grab the relics myself. So that's just some examples of the strategy, how I adapt in game, is because I always start the game with I'm going to be aggressive and feudal, and then I immediately adapt to what I scout and see the enemy is doing. So if you're not dead of boredom yet, I have one last thing I want to talk about here in a couple minutes on general strategy before we get to what I think is going to be a lot more interesting in map awareness and decision making. So unit counters, this is really pretty simple. You've got to use them. There are players out there who you're going to see them play HRE in Japan, and all they're going to make is melee infantry. Okay? You've got to beat those guys. You don't want to lose to someone who's making the same unit. It's the same as French. You're going to run into a player that just makes knights. What do? Make spears and crossbows, man. Make walls, make spears and crossbows. Mongol only makes Magadai. Make walls, archers, and horsemen. You'll beat them. I promise. So, if you're not already actively using counters in your gameplay, and what I mean by that is you scout the enemy base, you see their production buildings, you see them making units out of those production buildings, and then you build units accordingly. You need to constantly scout the enemy army composition before it takes you off guard. So for example, if you've been making archers because he's been making spears, great. You need to continue to scout his army, because if he throws up stables and rolls up with 15 horsemen and deletes your army of archers, the game is over. So you need to constantly scout the enemy army composition. You're going to become a much better player if you scout the enemy army composition and then make units accordingly to beat his army composition. That is how you win the game. Like, there's a lot of things that go into it, but at the end of the day, army composition really matters. So I hope y'all enjoyed that general strategy and did not die of boredom, but we had to get through that. And now we're going to move to some improving your map awareness and decision making, which I think will be more interesting. Hopefully not too dry. I'm going to use some gameplay examples, so stick around for that, and we'll get to that in step 4. Thanks for watching step 3. Alright, Conquerors. For step 4, we're going to talk about map awareness and decision making, and I have a beautiful map of Dry Arabia here to help us talk through that process. So there's a few things we're going to talk about, and I'm going to split this up into different sections. One is resource denial, when to fight, tech transitions, relics, adapting to your opponent, and then that'll really wrap things up, and I'll do a conclusion of this video. So I hope so far things have been pretty helpful for you. Now, there's a few things I want to talk about as far as resource denial. And we're going to use this beautiful picture of Dry Arabia as an example. So let's take a look, and if you're playing as blue here, or excuse me, if you're playing as red, we're going to mark a few things up. So let's say you start the game, you scout the entire map, you're playing as red, and one thing you want to kind of take into account when you're scouting early is where are you going to expand later? Like in the game, once you run out of sheep in your original gold mine, where do you expand next? What's your next best expansion point? You don't really want to expand in both directions, north and south. It's almost too much to defend, okay? So you really want to pick one expansion point that you can move to. So, for instance, if I had to look at this, and I'm playing red, and I've scouted it, I'm thinking I'm going to move north. Okay? And then we do some walls here. You could even do a wall here. And then at the bottom, you just do your wall like this. Rather than expanding all the way out on both sides, you've got a little more defendable territory. The reason I say that when I just take a quick look at this is you don't need stone to survive, guys. So the stone is nice, but you do have a big stone back here. You've got 2 small golds and a big gold. You've got a deer and multiple berries, compared to the bottom side, which just doesn't have as many resources. So when you're scouting in your early game, you need to kind of go ahead and think about, so you don't have to think about later, where's your expansion point? Where are you going to move out on the map? You don't want to be 15 minutes into the game and just scrambling and throwing guys around for food on the map and getting caught out. Now, that's how you're going to protect your resources. You know, maybe we get some towers up out here and we rally our military units out here to defend this area. Now, if you're playing against red and you scout, sometimes bad spawns happen. And if you see a bad spawn, you need to take advantage of it, okay? So if I'm blue, I know I've got to expand out to this side. It's where literally all my food is. Food, gold, literally everything, okay? So as red, we kind of want to take into account resource denial as a key strategy in the game. Okay? The number one resource, in my opinion, that you need to deny in the game is food. If they run out of food, the game is over. Like, if they run out of food and you still have food, you're making units, they're not. You're making villagers, they're not. Doesn't matter if they have 3 town centers if they have no food. Okay, you'll overwhelm them at some point if you deny their food. You can live without gold, even though gold is very important to deny later, and we'll talk about that in a second. But early mid-game, if you run out of food, you are literally screwed, because you have to put all of your villagers on wood and start doing a farm transition. So running out of food is the worst thing that could happen early to mid-game. So if I'm red, I'm expanding up here, securing my area, and then I'm focusing on denying these resources. Because we've got 2 packs of deer, 2 possible golds, 2 berry bushes, and of course the wood line. You deny this, pretty much game over. Not pretty much. It's game over if you deny this and you're playing red. This was just an example map I picked up. So, it's very important. Resource denial is a key strategy in the game. Okay, if you're playing aggressive early, you can deny the second gold a lot of the time. So, like, his first gold is safe. So, let's see if we can erase. That is not what I wanted. We'll pretend that that didn't happen. So, let's go back into editing. So again, let's say this is blue's 1 gold, okay? So you're really not going to deny that back gold. He's going to get it. It's too safe. He could pop a wall here and pop a wall here if he wanted, and that gold's not getting touched. Now, what you can do if you're playing red and you want to be aggressive is you deny this gold and you deny this gold. And maybe even put an outpost or patrolman on this gold. So let's say you box blue into his base and he runs out of this gold in the back. You want to deny all of his other golds. And he'll pretty much lose the game, right? Like, he's got 1 safe gold, and after that, none of his golds are safe. So, resource denial is really important because you don't need to make rams to win the game. Like, if you have a bigger army, you don't need to make rams and destroy your opponent's town center. You just deny them from getting resources. Like, if we just deny all of this deer, these 2 mines, let's actually switch this to red. You know, if we just create basically a blockade with our army, we don't have to worry about ever pushing in. We just blockade him from all the resources. The game's pretty much over, right? Like, if you get map control like that, you know, you have a big army, you're stuck in his base, you pick up all the relics, you go get all the deer you want on the map, all the gold. And a lot of the time, if I get this serious map control, I'll go ahead and I'll go gather these gold mines. Because these are the big gold mines that you're going to need later in the game. And I'll save my ones closer to my base. So early game, denying these small gold mines and the food is really important. Mid game, denying the relics is important. Late game, denying these big gold mines is what wins you the game. Like late game, they're trying to, let's say they've already gotten these golds and you've got a keep here and a keep here, and you're eating up all the gold here, he's screwed. Because the only way he's going to get gold is trading, and we can see that's not happening. So that's my little clinic on resource denial. Okay, hopefully that was helpful. If you have any questions on resource denial, I would say I'm very good at resource denial when I play games, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have about it. There's multiple ways you can do it. You can do it with feudal aggression. You can do it by going, for instance, fast castle and then having a castle timing attack, pushing your enemy into their base and taking map control and denying and grabbing relics behind it. So really happy to answer any questions y'all have about that. And I think what I'm going to get into here next, hopefully with some gameplay footage, is when to fight, tech transitions, and then relics. And so I'll catch y'all when I jump into that. What's up, Conquerors? here again, and we're going to use some gameplay footage for the last 3 items and map awareness and decision making, because they really all wrap together quite well. So there's 3 things I want to talk about: when to fight, tech transitions, and relics. Okay? Let's actually start with tech transitions and relics, because those are most important when you are transitioning from feudal age to castle age, which you're going to see here. Okay? So this was a tournament game I was playing against a very good player, Felisberto, very solid. He was like top 50 or something at the time we played. And for my fast castle guys out there, really anytime you move into a new age, you never move into a new age unless you're going to make better units, get the upgrades for your units, or pick up relics. Okay? Like, if you move to feudal, if you tech up feudal to castle, and you don't get veterancy and you don't get relics, why are you in castle age? Just stay in feudal age and make units. Conversely, if you go from castle age to imperial age, but you don't get any of your imperial upgrades, your elite upgrades, and none of your eco-techs or your university upgrades for the next 5 minutes, you should just stayed in castle age and made more units and villagers. So it's always really important to consciously know, why am I going to the next stage? Don't just go to the next stage because your macro was bad and you have too much food and gold. That's not a good reason. You need to, going to the next stage needs to be a concerted strategy on your point. Some examples of that could be, you were planning on going fast castle because you were playing a fast castle civ, you want to grab relics, get your upgrades, then fight. Or if you're going feudal, you notice your opponent was turtling and not giving fight, you decide, I'll just go castle age, get my upgrades, and then take the fight. So that all makes sense. And I want to talk about transition timings a little bit here. So we're 8 minutes into the game. I'm a bit late because I did a Dark Age rush here, otherwise you would be aging up right now. But there's a few things that I'm doing in my transition to castle age, which I want you to think about. And I'll do 2-speed here just so we're not watching my villagers work for so long. So one, I know I want to go into mounted samurai. So I've already built my stable, and you can build it during the transition as well. It's pretty important to go ahead and get that production building down. You don't want to be hitting castle and then saying, I need to drop my barracks or stable or whatever. You want to be able to produce these units as soon as you hit castle age. The other thing, which I was actually a little bit late on, was, in this instance, since I'm making mounted samurai, or if you're making knights or any units, go ahead and get your blacksmith upgrades that you're going to need during your transition. That way, when these mounted samurai come out, they're ready to go. Okay, like I've gotten the upgrade. A lot of the time you can get +1, and then once you hit castle, you want to get +2 immediately. And that's a really solid timing. So, what's my general strategy here? The general strategy behind this castle age timing, and this is talking about tech transitions and relics here. And if you can get good at your tech transitions and your relic pickups when you move to castle, you're going to win a lot more games. I just know you are, because it worked for me, right? When I got better at my timings, you know, I went to castle when I meant to, and I got my tech upgrades and my relics, you'll win a lot more games. I can promise you that. So, start making my mounted samurai, send out my priest. Of course, you know, he's a good player. He's got a knight protecting relics, right? That's not surprising, but I can chase him off here. Main thing is, I need to go out and collect as many relics as I can on the map. It's free resources for the rest of the game once I have them. And you can actually see in this game, he decided to match my castle age, which is unusual for French, but he saw that I walled up here like a little gremlin, and so that's what he decided to do. So I'll get my monastery down soon where my guy can deposit relics. Right now, I'm trying to get out on the map, capture as many relics as I can. There's still 4 on the map. He's actually going pro scouts. which I think during the game, I don't even know if I noticed, to be honest with you. So, a good way to secure relics on the map, and I need to be better about this, is one, you guard your priest with units, but also you go raid him while you're guarding your priest with units. So you attack his base to pull his military units back to his base, and then you guard your priest with your own units. As you can see, I have some spearmen here to protect my good priest, and I did find his scouts. So, you see, he's had to commit to bring some units back. And while I'm talking about these tech transitions and timings, I'm also going to talk about when to fight, because if we go into caster mode, things are pretty even right now. Mounted Samurai versus Knight, so I don't really want to take a bad engagement at this point in the game. Things are even. I know I can't push into the base. I'm just trying to get map control and secure relics. That's the goal right now, right? So this is really kind of an even charge. Both of us back off, say, you know, not a great time to fight. And we have God Vision right now, but I really know a lot of this through scouting. Barely missed those scouts. And, of course, he always has a scout with his knights, as you should. Again, I saw he moved all of his knights up here to attack my mounted samurai. So what does that mean? That means I know they're not at the bottom, so I attack. You really have to pick and choose fights, right? If you can scout and you can know where the enemy army is, you can know when you can go in for an attack on the base. Right? Like, take your units and go where the enemy army is not for your counter raids. Like, if you've got vision, you know where the enemy army is, and you're equal footing or can't fight it because it's bigger, go counter raid where their eco is. That's just the easy way to do it. I do that over and over again. So, I think just one relic right now. Did he pick up relics this game? Nope, 2 relics. He's probably killing monks out here. 3rd relic on the way. We've got 2 more monks going out of the other relics, which they're obviously not going to make it. So this is actually where the point of the game gets interesting. So I've already done my tech transition. I've already done my relics. I got 3 relics. That's pretty solid. The other one's coming back. If I can get 4 or 5, I mean, that's amazing, but not expected. So at this point, I'm getting my veteran spearman, making Onimusha because he's got knights. Got to get my upgrades there faster. And now I'm going to kind of gear up to take a fight. I'm going to get another town center out here, and then I'm going to gear up and take a fight. You can actually see, you know, his numbers, his knight numbers are really good right now. He could probably, he could probably take me in a head-on fight. So I kind of want to do some raiding while just defending the base. I want to pick and choose my fights here. If you feel like your opponent's got a stronger army, you don't really want to engage that directly. You kind of want to defend the base with your infantry, which you'll see me do here, and counter raid with cavalry. That's how I do it. I'm not saying that's the best way because I'm not the #1 player in the world, obviously, but that's just how I do it. So, you know, I had outposts here, just ran my villagers away, bring everybody back. I don't want to fight with just... So, here's something players do all the time who are lower league. They would just charge these spearmen into these knights and get annihilated. Like, you always want to fight with your critical mass. You don't want to take bad fights with small amounts of units. So I deliberately kept these spearmen away from the knights while my other guys got here. And you can actually see this is a bit of a bad fight. He could turn around and take a charge here. So I really shouldn't do this because he's got critical mass of knights and I don't have all my units together. That was a bad fight for me. It's the very small things like that that win and lose games long term. So, you know, he's got a lot of knights. Get a second town center up, whatever. I keep the spearmen at home, and I decide, hey, to defend at home, I'll keep, you know, building spearmen, rallying spearmen out here, and then I'll keep going and raiding with my cavalry. Like, that seems like a good idea. You know, a few more villager kills, had some bad pathing there. But you can see now, I had some walls up at the base, some pike, some spearmen to defend. Now it's 10-0 in villager kills. And French have faster villager production, so they're really not that far behind. And I've probably idled my town center a bit because I'm bad about doing that. So, just got my third relic, fourth relic coming in. Can't remember if I ever get that one. Probably not. So again, you can see I always apply constant pressure, so I have two armies on two sides of his base, just keeping him in his base, applying constant pressure. Don't want him to get out on the map to these other resources, because there's a lot of food out here that he could use. There's gold out here. So we were talking about map control and resource denial earlier, and what do we see happening? Because I've got mounted samurai out here, he can't go eat his fish. He's building farms. Which means he's got a ton of people on wood, and he's going to have to build farms, which puts him further behind. Because right now, he's ahead in army. But once he starts building these farms, he won't be. Farms with Japan don't really put you that far behind because you have really good harvest rate anyways. So, I'd already farm transitioned. So, now he kind of goes for a mega push here. And you know, I'm kind of talking about when to take fights in this segment, so I see he's going for a mega push, and my thinking here was that I could not beat his army at this time, because he's got a bunch of knights and archers, and I did not actually think that I could beat the military mass that he has coming from my base. So what I decided to do was keep my infantry at home and try to defend as long as I could. Right? Like, this is just, I don't want to lose troops here. I just want to delay him. And then I'm going to take all of my cavalry, run them into the base, kill as much as I can, then come back and defend. Because your cavalry can always run back to your base to defend when things become critical, just because they're faster. Your infantry can't. So you can keep your infantry at home to delay and take fights if absolutely necessary, and your cavalry can go raid, kill as many villagers as they can when your enemy moves out of their base, and then go back and defend. Alright, so this is just some general strategy of when to fight that I think will help a lot of people. Anytime you're under pressure in a game, you should still be attacking. The absolute wrong move for me here would be to pull all of my units here and just sit here and not raid at all. Because then I would apply no pressure, he would regain map control. So when you're under pressure, use horsemen or knights to counter raid the enemy. If their army is in your base, it is not in their base. And then you can raid. So that is actually my pro tip. I win a lot of games through counter raiding. You need to use it. So let's watch the end of this. So, you know, I don't want to fight here. I lost more spearmen than I should have. There's so many archers, I really just need to pull back into the base. So, another thing you can do, pull your garrisoned army, for lack of a better term, in the base, rally your units out here. And then we can see on the opposite end, it's a slaughter. I was at 10 villagers before this, now I'm at 25, 26. Finding more villagers on the wood line. We can see he's pushing into the town center, which he may destroy, but that's okay because I've got so many villagers back here. And he sent his whole army on attack and didn't leave anything at home to protect the vills. So he brings down the second town center, which is bad for me, to be honest. And then I realize he's garrisoned in here. There's not that many more vills because he's got some towers. And, like, it's time to come home and try to defend this. Because I didn't want to lose 10 more villagers on these towers either. So, I start bringing this army back home. I want to link it up with this army before taking a fight. You're going to see that I did a bad job of actually accidentally running into his army here. But I thought he had more knights left than he did, so he gets a good charge. I wasn't even paying attention. But I've actually got the mounted samurai numbers here, so I ended up being lucky. But got my kind of rear guard / garrison army coming up from here. And then it's just the game at this point. So he lost a lot of units pushing into the towers in town center. I didn't really lose any units. And then I killed a lot of villagers. And so at this point, I have too many guys sitting at home. But I just set the rally points out here because I know I'm going to push. Great time to take a fight is after your enemy has pushed into your base and lost a lot of units. You can counterattack lots of the time. So a lot of the time you can counterattack, and because they've lost so much army, you can win the game there. So I hope that helps a lot as far as strategy on when to fight, tech transitions, and relics. I just added some gameplay footage in there so it wasn't, as boring as kind of the other slide sections. But I hope that helps. If y'all have any questions about that section of the video, happy to answer any questions you have. Just leave them in the comments. You can always message me too. That's totally cool. Thanks so much for watching this video. I think I'm going to do one final section on economy scaling that'll be super brief. But if y'all enjoyed that, just drop a like, subscribe if you learned something, and I'll see you guys in this next section. What's up, Conquerors? For our last section of the video, we're going to quickly talk about economy scaling, siege, and the conclusion to this video. So if you've made it this far, I appreciate you watching. I know some of it's been dry, but hopefully super useful. And I'm actually showing a game here where I got my butt kicked and just pulled out a win through craziness, which I think in this video I'll be able to show how my opponent outscales me economically, and how in the end, siege really helped me propel me to a victory. So this will be an interesting one. So right now, we talked earlier about your town center idle time. I'm not in Song Dynasty where my villagers would produce faster, but it's 6 minutes in the game. I'm 2 villagers ahead of him. Now, how does that happen? That happens because he's had idle time on his town center. So again, that's just something to be cognizant of. When you're playing the game, you need to constantly be building villagers out of your town center. If you don't, you're basically losing an advantage that you should never lose, right? You should never be down villagers if you're both on one town center and just making them at the same pace. That should never be a thing. So I'm playing China. He's doing a Ruse Pro Scout Fast Castle build. I'm doing Pro Scout as well. He surprised me with the knight a little bit since I went horseman, which was smart on his part. So he does a really good job. What I want to talk about in this game is economy scaling. Okay, so the general idea is if I'm playing 1 town center and you're playing 2, I have to kill you. Because otherwise, your economy will just outscale mine at double the rate, and you'll beat me later in the game. It's a very simple concept. If I build 2 town centers and you build 3, I've got to kill you, because your economy will outscale mine. It's just a matter of time until you'll be able to beat me. So anytime someone is going a little greedier than you are, for lack of a better term, it puts you on a ticker. You either have to match or outdo the greed, or you have to push and kill them. It's really one or the other. You need to scout your enemy, and if they are outscaling you economically, you cannot sit in your base and do nothing. You will lose the game. That's a very important concept to understand that a lot of players don't play well against. Is they'll just keep playing on their 1 town center when someone else is on 2, or trade, or something else like that, and they're just getting outscaled, and it's you can make 50 longbows, but it doesn't matter because they're outscaling you economy-wise, right? So you've got to either kill your opponent or outscale them economically, right? And we're actually going to see here in this game, I get outscaled pretty bad. It hasn't happened yet because I'm at 8 speed. But we'll see where essentially he goes for a strategy I was saying earlier, which he goes fast castle into grabbing relics. And after he's secured map control and relics, you can see he got his first relic here. Then he'll start ramping up the economy pretty heavily. So, you know, he's building horsemen, he's sending them out, he's taking map control. I have done a bad job taking map control myself, and boom, second town center. So, I have 5 villager lead right now. He's building a 3rd town center, going super greedy, but this will vanish really, really quickly, okay? So, this is where I actually have spies, so I can scout this. I eventually scout it and see he's on 3 town center and kind of freak out. But because he's going this greedy, I either have to match 3 town centers, or I have to go all in and try to kill him. Like, those are your 2 options. So, economy scaling wise, if I just sit here and try to build up in my base, he's just going to obliterate me, right? And the reason I'm talking about this is because I've talked with players who are gold, platinum, diamond, who I guess have struggled with this concept a little bit. So this is why I'm talking through it, is a lot of the times they'll play a game and they'll be like 1 town center English against 2 town center English and not know why they lost. Well, it's because you weren't able to kill them early and therefore they easily outscaled you. So that's just something to keep in mind. Like, if you can't kill the enemy early, you either have to do that all in and win or lose on it, or you have to match them and try to scale. So I saw he had a second one and basically decided I would match and get a 2nd town center. What I didn't realize at first was that he had 3 town centers. And once I realized that, my tune really changed, which is why I threw it on a Siege Workshop, is because once I realized he was on 3 town centers, I realized I was going to have to go all in, which, you know, is crazy at this point because I'm vastly behind in economy and our militaries are still pretty similar, but 3 sacred sites, 3 relics, 3 town centers, he's setting up trade. And so I was just like, you know, win or lose at this point. I can't keep matching his scaling. He's already ahead of me. I've just got to send it, you know. I've just got to put everything I can together and shoot for the fences. So the one thing we're going to talk about in this, and this, I'll admit, is not a great gameplay footage to talk about Siege. But Siege is really important in the late game. And if you make Siege, the most important thing is keeping your siege alive. Your army does not matter. So, you know, all these Dung Nu and stuff, nest of bees or cannons or trebuchets or whatever, those have to stay alive. Like, forget the army. The army's job is to protect your siege so that your siege can kill the enemy army and units, because siege is very expensive. So, my army's job, protect these nest of bees, because he's already 30 economy ahead of me now, because I'm going to do an all-in with everything I've got. So my army has to protect these nest of bees. The nest of bees is how I will break his army with the horse archers. So here we go. Do a little push out. The villagers are here to torch buildings, but they can also protect and repair siege. Actually got a little careless with the siege there. But again, you can see, economy-wise, I'm getting annihilated, so I have to do something. I cannot try to outscale him. He's already beaten me, economy-wise, right? And normally, he had not yet upped his military like he should have. Normally, when they're booming that hard, there will be a window where you can push, where their military hasn't ballooned. And this is the exact window I got kind of lucky with. Starts building keeps, but I have nest of bees, so I already killed a lot of villagers here. I think I did lose the nest of bee here. And, you know, the rest of it doesn't matter as much, but the general goal is surround and protect the nest of bees with the siege. And, you know, this isn't going to work every time, but sometimes you get lucky. So again, economy scaling, 2TC is going to beat, if we're talking pure economy and not fighting, 2TC is going to be 1TC, 3TC beats 2TC, 1TC trade beats 2TC a lot of the time. So you just kind of need to keep in mind economy scaling, be scouting with your scout, understand what your opponent's doing. If they're scaling up massively and they're ahead of you, you can either try to match it or you can try to go all in and kill them. The choice is really yours on how you want to play that. It just depends on the situation. But a lot of the time how I play it is I just go all in. Right? Like you can win or lose the game right there. Just see what happens. So that's really the conclusion of the video. We covered a lot in this video, and I'm not sure if anybody's going to make it to the end of this. It's so much. Normally I wouldn't do such a long video for tutorial, but I do truly think if you watch this and you sleep on it, take 1 or 2 of these steps, and for the next like 15 games you play, work on those. And then the next 15 games again, you work on another step. And then the next 15 games, you work on another step. You need to slowly integrate some of these into your gameplay. Don't try to do every step at once. Like, pick one part of the step, do it in your next 15 games. Pick another part, do it in your next 15 games. And you'll slowly integrate this into your gameplay and get better and better. That's how I got better. I would choose something like, okay, on Age Up, I'm going to get relics. And I would focus on that, dude, for like 40 games. I'd be like, I'm going to get relics. And now I just do it. So we talked through a lot of stuff. We talked through mindset. We talked through mastering the fundamentals, choosing and mastering a civ, understanding strategy and matchups, improving map awareness and decision making, and finally economy scaling. So I really hope that this video was helpful to some people out there. It took quite a while to make. If it was helpful, please drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you learned something, and let me know in the comments if you have any questions. And as always, thanks for watching, and take it easy.